Hello and welcome, this is Jason Baker with Integrum Retro, and this is a quick setup guide on how to set up your GUN4IR light guns using my new Integrum Retro light gun drive.
Shall we play a game?
What you want to do is load up Launchbox, then go to light gun calibration. Go ahead and double click on the GUN4IR icon, and that's going to load up the GUN4IR software. If you get an error like this saying no license, that means that you didn't install your license file. So check your email for it. And one way to find it is to just simply open up an Explorer window, go to the light gun drive, tools directory, light gun software, and then GUN4IR. You're going to want to copy your license file here. Now, for just demonstration purposes, I copied it in this directory, so I'm going to drop it into the home directory. Now I could go back to Launchbox and click on the icon again, but notice here, I can also start the GUN4IR software directly from the same folder. So let's just go ahead and do that. Now the first thing is you want to click on Detect Guns. So if you don't see any guns there, you'll go ahead and click on that. Notice here though, this is going to be of very big importance. This gun is being seen as a Player 2 gun. That's going to become important in just a moment. But let me show you some of the basics. The first thing we want to do is to ensure that our LEDs are set up properly. What you can do is click on Test Screen. Even if you haven't installed your LEDs yet, notice here at the top, left, bottom, and right of the screen, it's going to show you where your LEDs should be placed on your monitor. So I've done that here using the Velcro strips included, and I've got these installed here. Now this is an ultra-wide screen monitor. I don't have it in the full screen mode right now, but you can see that I'm in direct alignment with all of those dots. Once you have the LEDs installed, now you can calibrate. So the first thing we want to do to calibrate is to simply click on Start Calibration, and it's going to calibrate whatever gun is selected up here in the top. So let's click on Start Calibration and click OK. Now in the upper left hand corner you're going to see the yellow dot, or the little dots, which represent the LEDs that can be seen, and notice it sees all four of them. And then all you have to do is simply shoot the targets. And if you happen to lose an LED, it looks like I did here, I lost the right one, it needs at least 3 LEDs to continue. So fortunately it sees at least 3 of the 4, so we can continue calibration. At this point you can see here now I have perfect alignment on the screen. Pull the trigger again, and then it will return you back to the software. So now that you've calibrated, there's really nothing left to do at that point. You know, make sure that your default content mode is full screen. My software will change it when necessary, so you don't need to worry about that. And then for camera sensitivity, sometimes you can actually turn up a higher level of sensitivity if your lights aren't bright enough, if you have too much infrared. For me, I'm just using a custom balance, but you can certainly turn this up. The next one is to look at the inputs and outputs. So on this screen here, the trigger should always be the mouse left. The A button, which is your first action button, should always be mouse right. Your second action should always be mouse middle. Now I have to make some assumptions in all the games I've configured that you're going to have that set up. If you do have a pedal, the pedal default button will be the letter T. Now here's where it's important. Select and start. Let's take a look at the start button. The start button for a single player should be player 1. Now if you only have one gun, I would suggest you go and change the start here from 2 to 1 if you only have one gun. Otherwise, there are some occasions in which I'm not able to recognize the trigger as the start button, and you'll need to type in the right button. So in this case here, if I were to hit the button 6 on my gun, because I do have 6 buttons on this gun, it would start player 2. Right? But normally I would just press on my keyboard number 1 to start player 1 and number 2 to start 2. So in this case here, I'm just going to use this as a player 1 for now. Now the select button acts as a coin. For games that require a coin, the player 1 coin is 5, the player 2 coin is 6. So again, I'm going to change this to 5 to accommodate the fact that I only have one gun. Up, down, left, right arrow, if you have a D-pad, just leave those as is. And then these settings here, the off-screen reload is enabled. It should just be a normal shot. You can decide to turn on auto reload, but in this case I would leave that disabled. And then of course, if you want to use the pedal for something other than reload, you can use it as some extra button, but I recommend just using that. Make sure that gun mode is on mouse keyboard, because essentially we're looking at your gun as a mouse. That's as simple as that. And that's why you should cover the lens on your gun, because it can move your mouse cursor around. Now feedbacks are completely optional to you, so I'll leave that. I already have vibrate on this particular gun. I'm happy with that, but you can adjust the settings and how frequency and whatnot. Then finally, if you want to do a camera test just to kind of see if it's seeing all the points, all you have to do is simply click on Start Testing. Make sure your mouse cursor is over the game, and then here you go. It's just another visual, but in this case you're not calibrating, but you're just testing to see how bright or how effective it can see all your LEDs, which is good. Okay. At this point, you're done with the software. You should really never have to touch it unless maybe you add a second gun and you want to, change the coin settings if you have 6 buttons on the gun. But otherwise, you're done. Let's go play some games. So here in Launchbox, let's go find a quick game. Let's do Sega Model 2. And a fun one I always enjoy is Virtual Cop. Now, Virtual Cop, it's running another piece of software to make your light gun work with it called a mule shooter. And so in this case, you need to use your keyboard to enter the number 1 to start player 1, number 2 to start player 2, or if you've configured your gun to have a button that represents the number 1, you can do that as well. Okay. And I've also programmed it, if you do have an Xbox controller, if you hit start, that should also start player 1. But player 2 is going to be tricky. You're going to need a number 2 button specifically for this particular platform, for Model 2. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 1 on my keyboard, and that starts player 1. I'll go ahead and fire here at the beginner, and there you go. Now I can still press start for player 2 by just simply typing in the number 2. But again, I don't have a second gun, so that'd be kind of silly, right? But make a virtual partner if I wanted to. Alright, so to reload, we'll just simply fire off screen. That's all. Now, there is a button on my gun also that does act as a reload. So, depending on what your preference is, I prefer a button myself because it's faster. And I really like to challenge myself to see how fast my reaction times are. And shooting off screen and then trying to re-aim afterwards is just not desirable. Other than that, you are done. Have fun and go play some games.